Battlefield REDSEC has been out in the wild for a few days now. People are playing it, discovering what it's all about, and starting to form some opinions and first impressions. I'm still learning stuff every single time I play, but I've put in about 20 hours or so since launch. I've got some of my own thoughts that I want to share, along with a list of small quality of life changes that I've thought of myself. Some of them are my friends' ideas, and quite a few of them come from the live chat from my live streams as well, and I think they'd massively improve REDSEC beyond the already very good base that it started on. So drop a like on this video for the almighty YouTube algorithm, and if you haven't already, consider clicking that subscribe button and becoming part of the channel. We're past 950,000 subscribers now, well on the way to 1 million, and you guys watching can make a real difference in getting there. You've supported the REDSEC stuff really well so far, so thank you very much. Plus today, if you've got your own feedback on Battlefield REDSEC, please drop it down below in the comments section, and if you read comments down there that you agree with, then make sure you thumbs those up so that they rise to the top. As I've said before, you never know who might be reading that feedback. So I think it goes without saying that I've enjoyed my time in Battlefield REDSEC so far. For a Battle Royale experience in the Battlefield franchise, I think they've done a good job at integrating the class system. That was really important. It encourages team play, it incentivizes you to stick with your teammates so that you succeed. Each class has its own place. Assault is acting as the frontline pusher, with gadgets like the ladder to gain height or an advantageous position on your enemy. Engineer being the main vehicle counter player with access to a resupplying launcher, as well as the repair tool for getting your own vehicles back up and running. Support is there handing out ammo all the time and getting faster revives than any other class. And Recon provides more info thanks to its bomb drone gadget for spotting enemies at distances and helping to inform the squad of their next move. The class system works really well in duos as well, which I was surprised at. You just need to decide what kind of pair-up that you want in your next match. I will say Engineer is somewhat of an essential pick right now, thanks to the presence of so many tanks on the REDSEC map. So I'd say whether you're playing duos or quads, you want to make sure to have at least one Engineer active in your squad. But outside of that, the interplay between all the different classes works really well, and it sets REDSEC apart from other Battle Royales already in the space. The overall pacing of REDSEC took a little bit of getting used to for me. The general gameplay tends to be faster at the beginning, slower in the middle of the round, and then it really ramps up at the end. As the firestorm closes in, the play space gets smaller, and threats start to become a lot more immediate. The map itself is full of really good POIs and unnamed locations that allow for different styles of gameplay. I really like this map. Downtown and the Boutique District is a good hot drop for players who want action at the beginning of the round and they want to grab their loot fast. The airfield towards the north of the map is much more open. It's less dense in terms of loot, but it provides some much longer sightlines, making it perfect for players who want to use DMRs and sniper rifles so they can take out teams from afar. Now, transport vehicles are placed all around the map there to be used, but their lack of protection, once you start using them, makes you feel a little bit fragile. So as soon as you start taking some hits, it's probably best you find some cover before you're blown up by an RPG or even a light machine gun that seems to do massive damage to vehicles in this mode. The destruction in REDSEC is absolutely incredible, and again, it sets it apart from other BRs in the space. No other BR is really doing this. If there's an enemy inside a building and they've got you pinned across the street, no chance to cross over to engage or even get past that team, well, don't worry. Just whip out one of the many RPGs that you can find and you can bring down the walls, bring down their cover, and that'll give you the advantage back again. Downtown has a few of those completely destroyable towers, which make for awesome set-piece moments, and it massively ramps up the tension and action during those gunfights as well. Verticality is somewhat limited on this map when it comes to the buildings themselves, outside of the downtown area and the massive ATC tower at the airfield. And I think, again, this actually suits the pacing of the mode. Verticality in FPS games can massively increase the complexity of gunfights, and it brings in constant frustrations like losing to third parties that you had no idea were there. REDSEC's Fort Linden map is already quite large and open in several areas, with distance in your gunfights being a big consideration, so I'm glad to see that the developers decided to keep verticality, at least in most areas, to a minimum. Fighting on one plane, horizontally, as opposed to two, horizontally and vertically, helps to keep the minute-to-minute gameplay much more readable and enjoyable. So frustrating third parties are kept more to a minimum, and they're just going to happen mostly on the horizontal plane. The inclusion of tanks in the mode was something I was initially a little bit undecided upon when I first heard about it, but now having played the game extensively for over 20 hours and being part of those tank versus tank battles and tank versus infantry battles, that was my real concern. My fears have all but evaporated. The fact the engineer class is set up to deal with tanks from the very beginning gives infantry players an instant foothold in a fight, and with RPGs being lootable right across the map via anti-vehicle crates and others, other classes in the squad can substitute their gadgets for something that's going to be able to combat tanks towards the end of matches. A couple of well-placed rounds is going to disable a tank and stop it in its tracks, and the limited non-auto resupplying ammunition helps to limit their damage output. A well-coordinated squad is going to be able to keep a tank rolling for quite a considerable period of time, but when it comes to resupplying ammo for it, that's where other teams will be able to take advantage. As soon as the tank loses its mobility, it is just a sitting duck. The armor plating system in the game for me is a little bit too slow at the moment, especially off of the assault class, which has that training path that includes a significant plating speed boost. I personally feel like the plating is too slow for the overall pace of the game, but it's not something I haven't been able to work around. For me, the solution is just to disengage as quickly as possible in a gunfight and get at least one plate back in your vest before you re-engage. As much as the gameplay pacing is telling you to push into gunfights because it is quite speedy, the time to kill at close range is still very lethal, as it is in multiplayer. So it's important to use cover, disengage, plate up, and then re-enter the gunfight if you're able to. For me, I'd like to see them speed up plating just a touch, maybe like 20% or something across the board, to better suit the pacing of the mode that they've created. So those are like my general feelings on REDSEC right now. Really enjoying the game mode, having a blast with my friends. But I do want to get onto some stuff that I think could be improved. I've got some harder hitting pieces of feedback first, and then several smaller quality of life changes that I think devs could implement for some easy wins, and it would be like an elevation of an already very good base that they've got for REDSEC. So first of all, biggest thing, audio's a bit rubbish at the moment. Often I miss key indication sounds like the rumble of a tank engine or a transport vehicle that's quite close to me, or, probably the biggest thing, enemy footsteps when a player is literally right around the corner from me. They feel like they're getting lost in the mix at the moment, so I'm not sure if it's an audio priority issue or a general volume issue, but it does feel like this needs to be looked at and tweaked quite significantly. One major moment that tells you the audio needs work is that sometimes during infill, when you and your team are diving onto the map, there should be roaring sound coming through your headphones. The audio just steadily gets quieter until it's almost completely silent, and then the moment you and your team pop your chute, the audio comes pounding back through your headset again. So definitely the audio needs some work right now. When you win a game of REDSEC, it feels a bit anticlimactic at the moment. The game fades to black almost as soon as you get the final kill, bringing up this black victory screen, and then you're taken into the end of round flow with like a cinematic and then all of your stats at the end. It just doesn't really feel epic. It's kind of robbing me of that moment where we win on the map as a team. We can all celebrate for a few moments before the end of round kicks in and tells me how we all did in the game. So I'd like it if you could have that victory splash screen over the top of your live gameplay on the map for a few seconds after you get that final kill, so that you can share that moment with your teammates, sort of celebrate the win before the end of round cinematic kicks in, and then you go into your statistics. I think that would be a really good way of improving the feeling of getting a win. Plus, then you could have the music kick in at the end of as well when you're on the map celebrating. It would just make it feel like a much cooler moment than it currently does. And I think not having proximity chat in the game right now is a big miss. REDSEC is obviously a social experience. The only way you can play it at the moment is duos and quads. The devs obviously want you to communicate with your squad mates, but having a proximity chat feature in the game would be great as well. There are some pretty tense moments in the game. You're fighting enemy players. Maybe you want to throw down some fighting talk and, you know, get into their heads a little bit. Those kind of moments could be absolutely massive for Battlefield REDSEC. They could create moments that you're going to remember long into the future. So having a proximity chat feature in the game would be awesome. And then, I want to highlight that currently the UI for downs, kills, and squad wipes needs to be worked on a little bit more. Currently, if you get a down in REDSEC, you get this small downward arrow that appears just to the right bottom of your crosshair, separate from a down skull icon on the left in the score feed. But the score feed is where I look for info, and it's a shared feature from multiplayer. Currently, that down skull icon is not clear enough for me. Then you get a kill confirmed skull that has this like tick on the forehead of the skull. Again, it's not particularly clear. And finally, you get this squad wipe notification that appears in the middle top of your screen if you wipe a squad completely. So all of the elements are in there, they're just not particularly clear. And I'm not 100% sure if I'm correct here, I don't think there's distinct audio confirmations for downs, kills, and squad wipes as well. There is one for squad wipes, I've heard that one, but I do have trouble hearing it sometimes. Again, I think it's getting lost in the mix. And for downing a player, I think REDSEC currently uses standard kill confirmation sounds that you get in multiplayer, which is a little bit confusing because you haven't actually killed the player, you've just downed them. So having a unique sound for downing a player would be good too. I do know that they have sounds for plate breaks in REDSEC, and they stand out really clearly when you're shooting at someone, so that's a good thing. Okay, so those were my bigger bits of feedback, and now I want to finish up with some quick-fire stuff that I think would really improve the REDSEC experience, and definitely are focused more on, like, quality-of-life stuff. So, first of all, I'd like to see the amount of time it takes for a player to go from their ragdoll position, once they get downed, to being in an actual down state laying on the ground, sped up significantly. Right now, it seems like the transition kind of happens in slow motion, from the ragdoll being almost lifeless on the ground, like you've killed them, but of course you haven't because you've just downed them, and then the ragdoll gets motion again and the body moves into that down state on the ground. That could be sped up a lot for better visual identification. That would be awesome. I'd love to see the devs implement individual colors for each player in the squad to be used in the HUD. Right now, every player uses the same color. I think by default it's that bright green, and this makes individual player icons and pings extremely hard to differentiate. By having each squad member in their own unique color, you'd be able to make better callouts to your squad mates, and with just a quick glance at the minimap or the big map, you could much more efficiently locate your individual squad mates as well. And whilst we're on the subject of squad colors, down in the squad widget next to the minimap, it'd be great to get some additional icons next to the health and plate bars. If a player is carrying a tank keycard, that shows up quite nicely already, so I'd like to see more of that for different items. I'd like to see the number of plates held by that teammate as an icon so that you can quickly ask someone for them if they've got more than you. And I'd like to see an icon if a player is holding a powerful item, like an airstrike or a UAV Overwatch, for example. These small icons in the HUD would be really helpful for callouts for your squad, knowing who's got what in some of the more tense situations. The sound for pinging needs to be much, much louder. Right now, it's like this little twinkle noise when you or your teammates are pinging something, and that sound gets lost in the mix very, very quickly. Pings are incredibly important in REDSEC due to the extended engagement ranges the mode has. Players can see stuff at longer ranges, sometimes through their scope, and you can't see them. So if somebody pings something, you need to be able to look in that direction very quickly. So being able to pick out those sounds for the marker is very, very important. Loot crates in the game don't make much noise at the moment. I think amping up the volume of those would be a really good idea. I've noticed the black and red ones in the game have their own distinct sounds versus the standard or the orange class ones, which is really nice. So you know you're approaching something of potentially greater value. But overall, the volume of those crates for identifying where they are located is something I'd like to see increased. Audio is definitely a theme here with this feedback. The volume of zip lines in the game is so quiet right now, it's almost impossible to hear if an enemy is approaching your location by using one. With a lot of roofs in REDSEC having multiple zip lines, especially in the downtown area, having audio cues be more present for that is very important. The minimap can be extremely powerful in REDSEC, giving you locations of enemy players who are firing their weapon or people who've been pinged in your vicinity, but it's lacking some simple additions that I think would make it much better. First, when you increase the distance on foot for the minimap in the settings, which I would recommend you do so that you can see more of what's going on around you, this scales down the size of the icons on the minimap, making them harder to see, or at least that's how it feels to me. Maybe just the icons on the minimap are very, very small. I'd like to see almost all of the icons on the minimap be increased in their size so that you can see them, especially the redeploy towers. Those icons almost completely disappear. And second, right now, the minimap does not show your squad mates ping icons or location icons if they're outside the range of the minimap. So having those icons added to the minimap and have them fixed to the edges of it when they're outside of the distance range that can be shown would be a very simple way to know what direction you need to go in order to help out a squad mate or just to follow them in the right direction. All of these pings are situated currently in the compass at the top of the screen, which is good, but if you're going to have a minimap in the game, then I think the information it displays needs to be on par with the compass. And then finally, speaking of the compass, I'd like to see the width of it increased so it takes up a little bit more space across the top middle of the screen. Right now it shows in increments of 30 degrees interspersed with direction markers. I'd like to see the compass widened and adding 15-degree implementations onto the compass for more accurate callouts, and the addition of a dedicated degree number just below the compass for precise callouts to your squad. But even with all that feedback to potentially make REDSEC even better, it is off to an absolute banging start. I'm having so much fun with this game mode, and even without those suggestions and feedback, I think the game is in a solid spot and it stands a real chance of holding its ground in the Battle Royale space. Don't forget to leave your own feedback and potential changes down below in the comments section. Drop a like on the video whilst you're down there and subscribe for more. I'll catch you in the next one.